What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about action, as in like string height. Let me clarify what I mean by this. When we talk about action on an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar, we're talking about the string height right here. Usually it's measured at the 12th fret. Some people measure it at the 17th fret. We're going to talk about, for the sake of this conversation, at the 12th fret, so right here. This is not the truss rod adjustment. This is not neck relief. This is not, it affects it. We'll get into that a little bit. But we're really talking about how high your strings are off the fretboard. Now the question might come up, why are we even talking about this? Because if you just put how high should my action be into the old Google webs, you will find out that most people will just say as low as possible without any fret buzz is the only answer. That will be a very widely held and widely believed thing that most people will say. I'm going to tell you that I don't think that that's the right answer. I think that there is no right answer. I think that there are going to be a lot of alternatives here and a lot of variables that are going to basically affect how you might want to set up your guitar and give you some reasons, even if you're one of those I want my action as low as possible people, to do some exploration, to look into this a little bit more and think about each guitar that you own sort of on its own, with its own specification set, if that makes sense. All right, so the question is going to be, what is the appropriate height for your action on your guitar? And I'm going to give you just sort of a general definition, and what I think it is that it's the appropriate height that allows you to move around on the fretboard with not a lot of effort, without too much effort, to be able to press down the strings, to be able to play in tune, and to be able to convey to the amplifier or to the soundboard of your acoustic guitar the tone that you want. Now the thing is that could be different for everybody, because if excessive pressure or too much effort is relative to everybody's hand strength, everybody's hand size, and a bunch of actual kind of technical things about each individual guitar. Let's take, for example, a comparison between a couple of different neck profiles and a couple of different neck setups. This Telecaster has a 7¼ inch fretboard radius, so that means that the top of the fretboard's got a nice curve to it, like a lot of curve, but it is a very slim very slim neck, right? So if I wear a medium to large hand glove and I play this guitar, the way my hand is going to interact with it and the leverage points that I have to be able to do various things, right, including bending, okay, are going to be affected by a bunch of things. The height of the frets, the curvature of the neck, and of course the width of the neck from here to here, as well as the thickness of the neck from here to here. So this is like inherently, for me personally, a very easy guitar to play. I would actually say that the string action on this guitar is maybe even less critical as a measurement, because this guitar is just inherently easy for me to play. Okay, this is my Les Paul. So now we've got a 12-inch radius fretboard, right? And we've got a thicker neck this way and a thicker neck this way, but it's still pretty slim. And it's relatively easy for me to move around on. I would say that I would actually be a little more sensitive to higher action on this guitar if we're just talking about ease of playing, because the neck is a little bigger. Now this is definitely the biggest, fattest neck that I have on my Les Paul Special, and I freaking love this guitar. I absolutely love it. So reason would say that because the neck is thicker, because it's just a fatter neck, and my hands obviously haven't changed size, that maybe I would really, really need some low action. Except that it's not just about the feel either. one of the things that a little bit higher action gets you, which honestly is how I have this guitar set up, it's how I have my Tele set up, is more room. What I mean by that is you have more room strumming. If you play harder, if you are really active on the fretboard, right? Like if you really dig in for the like total tone, bro, then you're gonna want a little bit higher action, because what's gonna happen is the harder you play, the more likely the strings are to bang into the fretboard, to bang into other stuff on the guitar, pickups or whatever. So having some room is kind of nice. Now, does that make the effort on this side a little bit higher? It can, depending on the construction of the guitar, but we're really only talking about a couple of thousandths of an inch down here. Because of the way the math works, you can raise the string action on this end. Actually, so I'll give you an example. So in order to raise the string height 1 millimeter here, okay, you have to raise it 2 millimeters here. It's just the way the math works with the trigonometry. So that means that it gives you more strumming room for 1 millimeter extra here, which that can be a lot. It depends on how you play. It depends on how it feels. And then the other thing that can matter is the scale length of the guitar. So the scale length of the guitar on this guitar is actually 24/75, so it's shorter. We talked about string tension in a previous video, how the shorter string tension makes it to where the strings are less tight. So a shorter scale length, the strings are less tight. A longer scale length, like on the Telecaster over there, the strings are tighter for the same pitch. So a higher action on a shorter scale guitar is going to feel different than a higher action on a longer scale guitar. Conversely, going the other direction and going very, very low, like on this guitar, so this is my MGK Schecter, this is super low action and a very flat radius fretboard, which basically allows you to do more tapping. Well, it's not in tune, but I just took it off the wall. So the idea is that you're able to do more speed, right? Obviously more speed, more things where your picking hand is less involved, right? Where you can do more expressive things with your fretting hand because the action is lower. So there's benefits and takeaways to everything. The string height, the fretboard radius, the neck profile, the fret size. Because remember that your fret size is part of the overall effective thickness of the fretboard, because this distance between your thumb and the top of the string is also affected by the fret size, right? So that kind of plays into it as well. Of course, the fretboard radius, all of it, it all kind of plays into it. The tension that you have on the guitar through the scale length, like this one's 25.5, and your string gauge. So shorter scale length, heavier string gauge, lighter string gauge, longer scale length, lighter string gauge, heavier string gauge. This is all going to change the feel of the guitar and the overall goal of the guitar. So what is the overall goal of each guitar that you own? I have these guitars all set up completely differently. This one's like really, really low. The Telecaster is probably the highest of the four that I just showed you. The Les Paul Special is probably the next highest. And then the Les Paul is probably a little bit higher than this. Why? Because I use the guitars differently. I use the guitars, honestly, with different amp profiles if I'm playing digitally, or regular amps if I'm playing analog. I use them to play different kinds of music, and they're all done for different reasons. So, it's not just the lowest is the best. It's figure out how you're going to play the guitar, what you're going to use it for, and then make your adjustments accordingly and do a little experimenting with string gauges, especially. And the other thing is tuning. We didn't bring up alternate tunings, but if you tune lower, like a half step down, if you're playing in a band and your singer can't sing high, whatever. I'm just joking, but yeah, so that's a thing too. And then that's just electric guitars. Let's talk about acoustic guitars for a second. Okay, so what inspired this whole video for me was I bought this D18 a couple weeks ago, and I started playing it, and I've been playing it a bunch. And this purchase was inspired by another guitar. We'll do that video separately. And I was going to do a setup video on this because I was like, you know, all acoustic guitars, it's just kind of how it is. All acoustic guitars come with the saddle a little high because it's one of those measurements you actually have to grind the saddle down. You have to sand the saddle down. And you can't put material back, right? So though, based on the, you know, varying, because of this conversation that we're having, the varying preferences of guitar players, and acoustic guitar especially, will come with the saddle a little bit high. My McPherson guitars came with 2 saddles so that I could adjust them manually, like just swap them in and out. Then I started playing it. And I started playing this guitar, and I was playing it a bunch, and I really loved how it played. And I measured it, and I'm like, oh, if you saw, I'm not going to tell you what the measurement is. If you saw the measurement that this low E is, you'd be like, ooh, that's kind of high. But I've been playing it for like a week, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to change it. And here's why. When you lower the action on any guitar, you change the attack angle that the string comes to. So when you push the string down, you get more attack. You get a harder break angle over this bridge. And so there's an angle that happens, like it pushes it down, right? And because it's an acoustic instrument, which is different than an electric instrument, because it's an acoustic instrument, it affects how the soundboard on the guitar moves. So if you bring the action really low on an acoustic guitar, you can kill the volume. Like it will change the amplitude that the soundboard on the guitar will move. On an electric guitar, it affects it differently. It does affect the amount that the string moves over the pickup. However, it's to a lesser extent. Some folks will say, well, there's more sustain, blah, 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 this and that. But what I would say is the more open chords and the open strings that you play, and the more you allow things to ring, especially on an acoustic guitar, the higher action can really improve that. This action on this guitar is a fair amount lower than that one. When I first bought my D28, to be honest with you, this is the second saddle that I've had on this guitar because I lowered it as low as it would go. It completely killed the guitar. It totally changed everything about it. And so I sort of split the difference. I basically put another saddle in it because, again, you take the material off, you can't put it back on. So I got another saddle for it, and I raised it. I didn't take as much off the second time, and I sort of split the difference. And now I'm really happy with how this guitar sounds. However, it plays different and sounds different. I mean, rosewood versus mahogany and etc., different guitar aside, the way you approach the guitar, the way you attack the guitar is different. I play this guitar differently than I play that one. I just play it differently. It's just, that one is, I don't know, I really like that guitar too. So they do different things. The same thing can be said for all of our electric guitars. How do you choose what your ideal action for your electric guitar is, or your acoustic guitar? I would say play around with it. On an electric guitar, it's real easy to make adjustments, right? You can go through your setup. You can go through your setup protocol, and you can play with this. There are a couple of cautions I would say. As you go higher with your action, the harder it's going to be to keep good intonation, especially like on a 3-saddle Stratocaster or Telecaster, or like that Les Paul Special that I had with a fixed bridge. When you go higher with your action, you're pulling the guitar further away from pitch as you push the string down. So depending on your playing style and where you use the neck the most, the caution would be if you go too high with your action, it might not sound in tune all the time, depending on your bridge setup and all those factors. Experiment with it. It's not that big a deal. Play with a little higher action, play with your string gauge, play with all those things, and see if you approach the guitar differently. You may be scared to do this, and what I would say is, if you have more than one guitar, take a guitar that you're fairly familiar with, right? Maybe it's not the one you play all the time. Maybe it's your number 2 or your number 3. And use that guitar to experiment. Buy a different set of gauge of strings, maybe 2 different gauges. Like let's say you play 10s, buy a set of 9s and a set of 8s. And set it up a couple of different ways. Different action heights, different string gauges, and see if it makes you play the guitar differently. See if it changes your approach to the instrument. A lot of times what will happen is you and I, because we like what we like, I like 13s on my acoustics and I like my action a certain way, and I never really thought about changing the setup from one guitar to the next on an acoustic guitar until I had these two side by side, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm going to leave that one that way and I'm going to play that guitar a certain way, and I'm going to leave this one this way and I'm going to play this guitar a certain way. So I'm just kind of passing that idea on to you to take one of your guitars that's maybe not your number 1 and set it up a little different and see if it leads you down a different path tonally, right? This is not, is it better tone if the action is higher or lower? Is my tone going to be better or worse? This is find a new one. Do some exploration. Set the guitar intentionally up differently and see if it leads you down a different path. It's just an idea. Obviously, you don't have to do it. Maybe you've done this. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you have experimented with and you're like, okay, never mind. I've defaulted back. And you might have. I've defaulted back to a particular setup. Or is each one of your guitars, if you have more than one, set up differently to do different things, right? It's just an interesting concept instead of just kind of defaulting to one answer that you see in a comment section or in a forum on the internet. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. This is really fun. I like thinking about this kind of stuff because I like trying different things, and this is a great way to do it because it doesn't cost anything. You just go in your shop and kitchen table and do some adjustments and see if you like it. Thanks for hanging out. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, go to Dylan Talks Tone, buy some pickups, or you can use the links in the description to support the channel. You don't have to if you don't want to, but they're down there. All those things help us out. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next video.